All right, friends, we're gonna do another video on JasonBlaha again today. It's T-Man, and yeah, let's see what the gym lifting, recruiting lifting slave himself says. JasonBlaha. So JasonBlaha says high volume training only mildly improves gains in any data. All right, let's see what he's got to say here. We're gonna do a reaction video.
Hey everybody, it's JasonBlaha here. Thought I would sit down and do a video for you guys and gals. All right, let's talk a little bit about the whole training volume thing. This is
Hey everybody, it's JasonBlaha.
the thing that I've said this a lot lately, and I want to be very clear on this. The studies do show one thing consistently when it comes to training volume. And I'm going to state in a minute that exercise...
Yes, the studies are going to show you that the training volume is going to build the muscle, not food. Okay.
Science studies are not the best studies in the world. They're difficult.
They're actually very good studies, but the problem is he doesn't know how to interpret them, and neither does Jeff Nippert or any of these other so-called social fitness influencers that are out there. They don't understand what those studies are about. Science already knows what builds muscle. You don't need a study of a group of people that did something to say, hey, maybe I should mimic the same thing they did and I'm going to magically build these muscles. You don't even know exactly what they were doing in that study. Did they tell you how much they were eating or what they were eating? Were they eating an artificial diet? Were they eating their natural diet when they were getting those results? You're so glued on, well, they did this high volume or they did this, they did that. Yeah. We all know that trained muscles never get damaged. They never get muscle damage. That's something separate. How do you accumulate a lot of contractile proteins in the muscle? Well, it's kind of obvious. You got to eat protein. Okay. Animal protein. Okay. How do you get sarcoplasmic hypertrophy? What is that? It's non-contractile proteins. It's based on an artificial diet. It's fluid buildup in the muscle, and it can hold a lot of glycogen in your muscles, and I mean a lot. You could put 60 pounds of glycogen in those muscles by eating an artificial diet, artificially inducing glycogen to be stored in the muscle artificially by eating an artificial carbohydrate diet. Okay, it's a fact. It's not going to happen on a carnivore diet doing that. Not necessarily. Your body does make ketones, whatever, but you're not going to put that much fluid in there on a carnivore diet. It's impossible. You have to eat an artificial diet to create these artificial muscles. There's really so many factors that go into bodybuilding, and then there's muscle damage. We know science tells you that untrained muscles, unaccustomed, unfamiliar forms cause muscles to get damaged, but not with a repeated bout. You understand me? They're protected from any more damage with a repeated bout. They tell you that. And they tell you that protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown to visually see that mass on the myofibrillar. They're not talking about getting more myofibrillars. See that? They have to look at CT scans to see if these people built any muscle. Do you wanna build muscle so it could be seen on a CT scan, dude? Or do you actually want to see it visually? So there's the difference. People want to see muscle visually. The problem is they're never exceeding breakdown when it comes to protein. They're so busy eating these carbohydrate diet, these artificial diets, carbohydrates, and building sarcoplasmic myofibrillars and not sarcoplasmic muscles and not myofibrillar hypertrophy. They're building sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. And if they're not even doing that properly in the gym, it's just an inflammatory response and they're walking around with inflamed muscles all the time, going back and redoing it over and over again.
To utilize and find trends in because it's not particularly well done science, and it's not the fault of the researchers. It's the fact that there's simply not enough interest to get funding to do this.
Oh, it's well done, man. It's well done. They tell you, man, you have a myonuclear domain size limit. They even tell you there's a section there that tells you it reached a ceiling limit during hypertrophic process beyond where the satellite cell can donate any more extra nuclei to that domain to support further muscle growth. It's your job to figure out how to get more more myonuclei to support further muscle growth. What does it say in science? What does it say? It says when muscles are injured, damaged, injured, or micro injured, you could call it that, okay? The progenitor cell is awakened. It comes out, it proliferates, differentiates, it repairs and remodels and donates its nuclei to that domain to do what? To support further muscle growth, dude. But protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown at the same time to push that domain. Otherwise, it's not donating its nuclei. The nuclei are to support further muscle growth once it reaches an MND size limit. You understand me? Yeah, it has to actually reach it. So, yeah, it's not going to support you anymore. It's not going to give you nuclei because nuclei synthesize protein. Science already tells you that. Tells you what damages muscles. Tells you what's going to give it to you. It tells you myocytic androgen receptor controls the strength, but not the mass of the limb muscles. Okay, I did some videos. I put one up recently. There's another guy who did another video about androgen receptors recently. I should pop that one up too now. He did one last night. So, yeah, androgen receptors, what are they? What are they? They're important, okay? They can get bigger, wider, they can get smaller, this, that. These are more important things than I saw a study, but they had a group of 5 guys untrained and they got a little bit of muscle growth. Yeah, the muscle growth, where you going to see it? On a CT scan. Jesus.
That we would need to do, okay? So that is something to consider, but I want people to also think about the fact that the studies that do show really high volumes causing more muscle growth, it is a microscopic.
High volume in trained individuals is a known fact. It produces sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Why is that? Because you're eating an artificial diet, dude. What is he talking about? Look, I gotta prove this to you, okay, man? This is just ridiculous. Let me see if I can find. Here we go. No, not that one. There's a study. PubMed. What does it say there? It says muscle fiber hypertrophy. What's hypertrophy? Just means something's getting bigger. It's all relative. If your muscles are inflamed, inflammatory response, are they not hypertrophy? Yes. Is that not transient? Yes. In response to 6 weeks of high volume resistance training in trained young men is largely attributed to what? Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Why is sarcoplasmic largely? Why in trained young men is it largely attributed to sarcoplasmic hypertrophy? Why not myofibrillar? Why not myofibrillar? Why sarcoplasmic? Number one, you're eating an artificial diet. It's a known fact. Everybody's doing that. Okay, dude? All right, all societies eating these carbs, these drugs. They're all on drugs called carbs. So it's attributed to that. Okay? And they're trained because untrained muscles get what? Muscle damage. What else? What other muscles get this damage? Untrained, unaccustomed, and unfamiliar. It starts with un. It doesn't start with trained. You know, when you're trained, that means you're adapted. If you're adapted to something, there's no more damage going on there. Maybe hypoxia, you know what I mean? Oxidative damage like RAS, reaction oxygen species and stuff. Some nitrogen damage, I don't know. So, but other than that, you're getting sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Your muscles they're largely attributed to sarcoplasmic. What is it? It's artificial muscle growth. And if you don't understand that, look it up, okay? So there you go. It's based on glycogen. It tells you there. Glycogen concentrations were altered. Boom. That's what it is, man. That's what it is. So when he's telling you that high volume is not gonna build you any muscle, especially again. You can still build muscle doing high volume if protein synthesis exceeds that breakdown. But these people, they weren't doing that. See what I mean? And they're trained. It's very specific. It's let's just say it's technical.
The fact that the studies that do show really high volumes causing more muscle growth, it is a microscopic amount, okay?
You see what I mean? He thinks that doing high volume is going to shuffle. If I go higher volume, that's going to shuffle I'm going to try to make my body grow muscles from a calorie deficit, like the small amount of protein that I'm eating, maybe 32 grams of protein, is gonna magically build those muscles. Impossible. You have to eat a lot of protein so that protein synthesis exceeds that breakdown. You need to be in a positive nitrogen balance. You need to be anabolic. If they used to sell these sticks at GNC, but way back in the day, like maybe 20, 30 years ago. They used to sell these sticks. They're called nitrogen sticks. You could check your nitrogen balance to see if you were anabolic. Okay, I don't know if you can buy them still. I don't know if you can buy them in the health food store or where. I have never checked for them, but they used to sell them back in the day. Okay, it's really simple. You can check, and I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be shocked. You're never in an anabolic growth state. None of you are, because number one, you're eating too much of your drug diet. You're eating drugs all day called carbohydrates. Number two, you're not exceeding muscle breakdown. Protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown. You're never exceeding it. You're never eating that much. You just don't even know what that much is. To you, you think that a sandwich, maybe, I don't know, you think that maybe even one steak is enough. No, one steak is not enough, dude.
In other words, it is not what is going to cause your gains. It's not what's going to make or break you. The whole idea being studied there is looking at the finishing touch. Can you gain an extra 1% or 3% more muscle growth for the year if you train twice as much? That's what they're looking at.
Oh man, let's see if we could like shuffle the minute amount of nutrients and protein into the muscle by doing high volume. Man, you're breaking down more proteins if you're exercise. I gotta tell this, man. If you're this is crazy. You're number one, you're in a deficit. Protein synthesis is not exceeding breakdown what you're eating. And now you're going to the gym doing high volume, and guess what? You're breaking down proteins. When you exercise, you're in a breaking down state. That's the state when you want to suppress all that. The cortisol, the catabolic hormone, you want to be in an anabolic growth state, positive nitrogen balance. Protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown. You need to eat a lot, dude. But none of you are. And now you're breaking down proteins, and you can't figure out why you are never growing, because you are trying to climb uphill with a boulder.
So I want us to be clear here. It's not saying, hey, people on high volume training are going to gain muscle and people on more moderate volume won't gain any. That has never, ever, ever been found in any study, to my knowledge. No even decently done study.
Yeah, they consider that you can consider sarcoplasmic hypertrophy muscle growth, eating a carbohydrate diet and shuffling glycogen into the muscle. It's just an energy source. It's artificial muscle growth. They're not going to tell you that in the study and say, well, by the way, we measured your muscles and they were based on sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. You need to look for a specific information in NCBI PubMed to explain to you what sarcoplasmic is. And I've even posted in community section, scroll down there a bit. It tells you a secondary shift, sarcoplasmic, non-contractile fluid.
But the problem we do have to keep in mind, and why we have to be careful with these trends, is because exercise science, as I've said many times, doesn't have the funding for muscle growth studies to really do well done studies. They use almost exclusive.
They do. They have funding for it. They do. They have enough funding for those tests. They're just doing something in the test because they just are. That's all. They already know what builds muscle, what the necessities are to building muscle.
Exclusively untrained lifters, okay? Which for any of us chiming in, we don't care about. We already know how to make novice lifters big. There are countless free programs that have proven it. I mean, I put out a free program in 2012 that's even on this channel still.
See? There's proven programs that make these people big, eating your slave diet, carbohydrates. I'm going to explain to you one more time what builds muscles, okay? And it isn't a program or any of these diets. This is what's going to build. This is an NCBI report right there. See that right there at the bottom, NCBI? Nutrition and Muscle Protein Synthesis, a descriptive review. It says skeletal muscles continually breaking down and synthesizing protein. However, when you exercise, you're in a broken down state. If muscle is going to maintain its mass, the net level of protein balance must equal 0. Okay, that's to maintain the mass. If muscle is going to gain mass, visually gain mass, protein synthesis must exceed protein breakdown. And they even tell you that on my channel. They tell you that as well. There's a section I just put in, nitrogen balance, dude. Nitrogen balance needs to be positive, in a positive nitrogen balance, to be anabolic. To be anabolic, so you can start growing muscles, lifting. Nothing will interfere. And I mean nothing, dude, is going to interfere.
They got published that thousands and thousands of people randomly all got gains. Thousands of people got gains on it. Novice program, it's free.
Yeah, your novice program, it's free. He knows you're eating an artificial diet. You're gonna. How can a program build a muscle? Food builds muscle.
You don't need more data to show how to make new gains faster.
But not all food gains that. Not all food gains the muscle that you want. Carbohydrates, they don't not build muscles. What they do is they store glycogen in the muscle. That's all they do. It's an energy source, dude.
Already super fast with the knowledge we have. So we're not getting many studies on more trained lifters. And when we do, they almost never really show high volume having a benefit. Keep that in mind. But we don't get enough studies on it. So we don't have the proper test subjects. Number two, they're too short in duration because it's kind of hard to get people to stick through for a full year and to get funding for a full year, right? That's a problem. Number three, too small a sample sizes. This is why we see so much inconsistency. This is one reason I think, one of the reasons we see that every school of thought, like you see different researchers getting different results in these areas that conflict with each other. Because we're not testing enough people. A study of 20 people for 10 weeks is simply not enough for us to really get through just the fuzz in the data. Okay, it is simply not a large enough sample size. We need 500 people. We need 1,000 people.
Okay.
Done for a year. And if we don't have that, we do have to be careful on how strong of conclusions we draw from this data. And I'm not saying we can't draw conclusions. I'm saying just be careful with realizing the flaws in the data gathering that exists. Again, this is through no fault of the researchers. So
again, you don't need a program to build muscles. You just need protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown. I guarantee, no matter what you lift in the gym, you're going to start feeling super strong. You're going to start lifting heavier. You're going to start getting bigger all the time. You're going to be in a positive nitrogen balance. You're going to be gaining muscle all the time. And it's not going to stop. I can guarantee you that it's not going to stop. You'll be able to even push that domain. While you're lifting and moving heavy weight, you may get some damaging episodes because it will hit a nuclear domain limit at some point, and that's when you're going to push it. You will get this damage, possibly not even knowing that you got it. You'll just say, oh my God, I feel really sore after my last workout. Haven't felt that in a while. Well, yeah, because you're starting to push that domain at some point. See what I mean? You probably wouldn't even know that, wouldn't recognize that. It's a possibility. I can't tell you exactly for sure. It's something you need to figure out yourself.
A lot of them, I have some who might chime in who are working in that area. They're like, well, it's not our fault. And I agree. No one's blaming you. No one's saying, hey, you, Mr. Researcher, why aren't you doing a study with 1,000 people for a year straight?
Why do you think these people always complain? I got a stronger, but I never got a bigger. Why didn't you get a bigger if you got a stronger? Because getting stronger has nothing to do with getting a bigger. You understand me? Getting not a stronger. That's bullshit. I lifted heavier, but I didn't get a bigger because I lifted a heavy weight. Well, lifting heavy weights don't make you big. That whole croton thing that he keeps bringing up about Milo from Croton or whatever, Croton, Greece, whatever, man. Sorry, man, this thing blinked out on me. So like I said, Blaha is always bringing up this thing on, what is it, Croton from whatever, The guy that lifted the bull. You give me a break, man. You think a human can walk around with a 2-ton bull with like 2,000 pounds on his shoulders? Yeah, he's gonna walk around with a bull that weighs over 3,000 pounds on his shoulders. No human can walk around with 2,000 or 1,000 or even 1,000 pounds on his shoulders. He cannot walk around with even 1,000 pounds on his shoulders, walking around the street. Okay, so give me a break. He's not lifting. Maybe there was a guy that walked around with a baby bull. A baby bull. He walked with a little baby bull on his shoulders, but he didn't walk with a full-grown bull on his shoulders. And walking with a bull does not make your muscles grow. That's bullshit, garbage, especially in this sort of deficit. It'll grow at some point, be forced to shuffle some of the nutrients in there, but it's not going to grow anymore. It too will reach a domain limit. It's not going to grow anymore. This is all lies.
1,000 people for a year straight, 1,000 trained lifters. And you're like, because I don't have $10 million. Exactly, not your fault. So, therein lay the problem. But here's the thing to think about.
So this book called Six Figure
Found 5 or 6 sets, hard sets per week, produce robust muscle growth. Lots of them.
Sets produce robust muscle growth. If you're doing sets, you're breaking down protein. You're walking around in a broken state. Proteins are being broken down. Do I need to prove that too from NCBI? Oh man, I don't know if I can bring all this stuff up, dude. Like, let me see, man. Hold on a second. This is ridiculous. He's ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I don't know if it's this one. No, it's not this one. Hold on a second. We are in a dynamic, constant turnover with muscle proteins being synthesized and broken down. We know that throughout the day. But what triggers protein synthesis? Immediate post-exercise consumed protein stimulates protein synthesis while waiting as little as 2 hours after the exercise blunts the response. So here's what happens. And I know this for a fact. So if you wait 2 hours after your workout and then you eat, because some people are like, I'll eat a little bit later after my workout. Well, 2 hours after the exercise blunts the response in this protein synthesis. Found elevated protein synthesis in those consuming 6 grams of essential amino acids. A post comparison. Okay, yeah, I already know this stuff. Descriptive review. There's one I'm looking for. It's not the window, man. That's not it either. Hold on a second. Protein synthesis remains elevated, generally no longer than 48 hours. In most cases, it is elevated. That is if you're adapted, in an adapted state. Most cases, it's elevated approximately 36 hours, after which it returns back to a baseline level. This science is new. No, that's not what I'm talking about. It just tells you that you're in a broken down state. I can't bring it up right now, man. Whatever.
Lots of them. We've got studies even going back 10, 20 years showing 5 or 6 sets to failure, 8 sets to failure. What happened? The test subjects all gained significant amounts of muscle mass.
Here's what happens. So you went to failure. That means that you're now in a higher broken down state of proteins. You're pushing the proteins to break down even faster by doing that. That's why it's not necessary. Look, If you're adapted in the gym and you're lifting and you're thinking, okay, I'll just do all these tricks to make the muscles grow, but you're not exceeding that breakdown in protein synthesis because you're not eating. You're not eating. And so what are you doing there exactly? Well, I need to go to failure to do what? So I can break down proteins even faster and more? And then he says to you, because they did that, they built muscle. I don't understand. How could you build muscle on a deficit and on a fake diet, carbohydrate drug diet? You see what I mean? The only muscle you grew there was most likely sarcoplasmic. Like it said, they're high volume. It's attributed to what? Sarcoplasmic. Okay, he's lying to you.
Always. Even studies on glutes and squats. 6 sets of squats to failure per week produced massive growth in women's glutes who were trained lifters. Massive amounts, very measurable amounts, even in...
If that's true, then why doesn't Blaha do any of this? So he could gain some muscle and he doesn't have to talk about it. Because, man, on my channel, Body does the talking. I'm speaking, but Body does the talking for me, bro. You're speaking, but Body is not talking for you, Blaha. It says nothing.
Weeks, okay? We've got a lot of studies showing those sort of training volumes absolutely work. Same thing, 10 sets. They work very, very well, consistently.
Absolutely not.
In studies. What we find, though, is the really high volume is where you see the inconsistency, okay? There have been a few studies done that showed higher volumes going beyond.
Man, there's so many people online, they'll flex, they have channels, and then they'll flex their arms and everything. And you see them, they're real lifting slaves in the gym. They're like lifting every single day. They have videos they're pumping out of lifting every day. And then they flex and show you their arms. And they're so proud to show their arms. Meanwhile, they're artificial. They're fake. There's just a bunch of glycogen in there. And they're like, woohoo, look at my arms, they're so big. And they're not even real muscles. They're fake muscles.
That caused less muscle growth. And I don't mean not less per set. I mean literally a couple studies looking at 15 or 20 sets a week found that the people literally gained less muscle than the people who did 10 hard sets.
If that's true, let's say these people that did these hard sets, whatever they're not hard sets, didn't gain any muscle growth. But people that did hard sets went in the gym and they gained muscle growth. Then why isn't everybody doing it? Why isn't everybody in the gym going to failure and building muscle every single day? They'd be juggernauts by now. They'd be massive, massive. You know that? Here's the thing. If a set or a rep could build a muscle, everybody in the gym would be massive. You wouldn't need people to be taking steroids, now would ya? Right? Everybody would be massive because sets and reps build muscles. They build muscles, right? Big trips, they build muscles. Reps and sets and lifting a heavy weight, they build muscles. Get it? Get it, trips? Get it? Big trips, get it?
Why? Because they probably weren't recovering session to session. It was interfering with the next training session, getting an overall reduced quality of stimulus, and they simply gained less muscle. All right, so we've got...
Yeah, okay, man, whatever. They never gained anything. No sets, reps are going to build any muscle, bro. Without sufficient protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown.
That school of thought. We've got other studies that have shown no real benefits to doing higher volumes. And then we've had studies showing 20, 30, 50 sets a week caused more muscle growth than 10. However,
50, 60 sets a week caused more growth than 10. Well, then everybody would be doing it.
I want to be clear on that. And this is...
I want to be clear on this. Go into a gym and look at all these regular people, these so-called natties, doing these 10 sets and reps, whatever the heck they're doing there, these schemes. Are any of them building any muscles? No. But I do know this is fatiguing muscles. So if you're eating carbohydrate, this drug diet called carbohydrates, if you are doing that and moving those kind of reps and sets, yeah, you're going to get muscle gain. Guess what it's going to be? Glycogen. It's an energy source. You're burning, what you're doing is you're activating glycogen synthesis now. And since you're eating more carbohydrates than protein, well, carbohydrate synthesis has exceeded that breakdown. In that in that regard. Get it? And so you're gonna build these sarcoplasmic muscles.
The point people miss.
Yeah.
It was not large amounts of extra muscle growth. Okay, in other words, studies that have found doing 30 sets caused more.
Did he tell you what type of muscle growth it was? Is it sarcoplasmic or myofibrillar, Blaha?
Muscle growth than 10 sets. It wasn't like double the gains. It was they gained a little bit more.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's not like they gained an extra pound of muscle here, guys. Okay, it was grams of muscle.
Sure.
Grams
Was it sarcoplasmic or myofibrillar, dude?
of muscle over the other groups. So when we look at it in that context, we have to remember that. So when the evidence-based circles are pushing this, you've got to keep in mind they're pushing studies showing that some of these studies are showing a larger training response and larger hypertrophy, but some of those studies, the data measuring has been called into question, as in maybe even the measurements were not that well done. Some people have called some of them out for, again, even some of it, they're not waiting for the inflammation to go down from training. It could be water weight, not true to.
Let me show you my plate, dude. Let me show you my plate, okay? All right. Here's my plate. Hold on a second. Here's my plate. Does your plate look like that? Does your plate look like that when you're eating? Notice my plates, they're all protein. It's all protein. Now, the only carbohydrate I have is that. Somebody said to me, you're eating that, what is it? Egg roll. Well, inside, there's just these little sprouts. But that's about the only carbohydrate. If your plate is mostly carbs and a tiny bit of protein, then you're not building muscles. You're building carbohydrate muscles. Yeah, dude. So notice my plate is all protein, and that's the carb. There's more protein than carb. See that? More protein than carb. There's carb. Okay. Here, more protein, and here's the carb. It's those little mandarins on the side over there. Those little tiny mandarins. See them? There's my carbs. If your plate is full of carbs and a tiny bit of protein, I know, but I know for a fact it is, okay? Then you're building sarcoplasmic muscles, dude. Okay, dude? You're building sarcoplasmic muscles, dude. It's really simple. What happened here? Oh, Harding again. Oops. I hit that by accident. Sorry about that.
Tissue, all sorts of stuff, problems with no double blinding. But the ones that have done the stuff correctly and have done that, because there have been a couple that have kind of gotten around that, and they have waited for inflammation to go down. They're trying to double blind studies things. What they found.
Here's what I found. Blaha's basket, when he goes shopping, it's all carbohydrate. It's tofu, beans, what is it, rice? I can't remember. Coffee, and just a bunch of stuff, man. Crackers and things. I think there were some potatoes in there, some sweet potatoes. The whole thing is carbohydrate. What kind of muscle he building? Carbohydrate muscles. Yeah. That's why he can't build muscles, because he doesn't understand that protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown. You need a positive nitrogen balance to be anabolic to build muscles.
Is that extra muscle growth versus the much lower volumes? It was a little bit. It was like 5% or something. Maybe I think in some cases up to 10% more muscle growth. So what that means is, instead of gaining 10 pounds of muscle over X number of months or years, if those studies were extrapolated out, you would gain like 10 and a half. Okay? It's not a night and day difference. It's not enough of a difference that you are going to notice it in a period of time. So when they're pointing this out, we are talking about trying to optimize every single last drop of growth you can in theory get, at least in the short term, because keep in mind, overuse injuries accumulate. All these things are a problem potentially. Burnout from it. So
Overuse and injuries is because you're weak. Okay, you're weak, dude.
it's trying to squeeze every last bit you can get, assuming everything else is perfect. So in other words, if you're not...
See, he wants you to squeeze out every last bit of that tiny bit of little chicken wing that you ate, those two little pieces of chicken wings. You have to eke out that protein to try to allocate, to shuffle into the muscle, to build that muscle. But it's impossible because you're in a broken down state constantly. So it's just protein turnover.
already gaining muscle at a solid pace, adding that extra 10 or 15 sets a week isn't going to make you start gaining muscle if you weren't gaining muscle with the programming you were doing already. It's pretty unlikely.
Again, programs don't build muscles. I could literally build muscles just being in what? Protein in a positive nitrogen balance. My muscles will start growing. I don't even have to lift weights in the gym. You don't have to lift weights. Your muscles are going to grow. They will grow to a certain degree. Now, will they exceed this myonuclear domain by you overeating protein, being in this so-called anabolic state, positive nitrogen balance? I don't know. It's a possibility. It may force that domain. It may force it. It's hard. It's really hard to say. That's why I say it's technical and it's complicated. I personally don't do it that way. I do it the way I do it. But I'm just saying.
So keep that in mind. They're simply trying to optimize for people who are already making solid gains. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today.
Optimizing for people that are already making solid gains, they're not making solid gains. When you use the word solid, what do you mean, Blaha?
I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.
Yeah, it was very informative. He tried to convince me that doing sets and reps and high volumes and going to failure are going to magically build myofibrillars. It's going to build muscle. I'm going to visually see that mass on that myofibrillar. It's funny. I've tried all those things in an adapted state as a trained lifter, and guess what? Never did anything. And I tried it just on 32 grams of protein. That didn't do shit because I was constantly hungry. Oh, wait, I ate carbohydrates. But when I ate the carbohydrates, my muscles blew up like crazy doing that stuff. I wonder why. Anyways, so much to think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel. See you in the next one, friends. This is ridiculous. Comment down below. Helps with the algorithm. See ya.